In the year 2013, in Detroit, Michigan, a 33-year-old woman, Tiane Brown, was very unsuccessful in her relationships. She was married to an abusive husband, a man named Toriano, and they sired two girls. The man always physically assaulted her, in addition to the beatings she always received. Her husband also threatened to kill her. Tiane feared for her safety, so she filed 3 personal protective orders against her husband, Toriano. She then divorced him. Tiane then entered into another relationship, and she sired her last-born daughter with her new boyfriend. However, later on, their relationship became toxic, and they separated. Tiane Brown, who was now a single mother of 3 daughters, gave up on relationships, so she decided to focus more on building her life, since she had earlier on gone to Wayne State University and earned a bachelor's of biological science. She again enrolled at the same university and earned her master's degree in biomedical engineering. As if that was not enough, she again enrolled at the same Wayne State University, and she started pursuing a degree in law. She focused on intellectual property. Tiane was earning a lot of money, and she was very successful. But on the night of October 28, 2013, while on the east side of Detroit City, she was brutally murdered and abandoned near a vacant Packard plant factory. Who murdered Tiane Brown, and why was she murdered? Surely we are living in a wicked world. This is the story of Tiane Brown, a single mother of 3 beautiful young girls. Tiane Brown was born on December 31, 1979 in Southfield, Michigan. She was raised in Detroit by her mother, Cheryl Jones. Tiane attended St. Scholastica Catholic School Elementary School. After her elementary school, she attended Renaissance High School, where she graduated with honors in the year 1997. After high school, Tiane went to Wayne State University, where she majored in Bachelor's of Biological Science. After graduating from the university, she was employed as an emergency technician at Beaumont Hospital. Later on, Tiane was hired as a biomedical engineer at a company called General Sterling. She then met a man known as Toriano, and they began a love relationship. The couple got married in October 2002. Later on, this couple were blessed with 2 daughters. Their eldest daughter was known as Nina. However, later on, their once perfect relationship took a different turn. Toriano became very abusive. He always hit Tiane. As if that was enough, he threatened to kill her. Tiane could no longer bear the physical assaults and death threats she was receiving from her husband, Toriano, so she requested the court for 3 separate personal protection orders against her husband, Toriano. Their relationship had reached a point where it could not survive, so the couple divorced each other. After the divorce, Tiane gained full custody of their children, so she started raising them as a single mother. Tiane then eventually dropped the personal protection orders she had requested against her now ex-husband, Toriano. She decided to focus more on her life and parenting, so she went back to the university to further her studies. So she enrolled again at Wayne State University and did her master's degree in biomedical engineering. However, later on, Tiane got into another romantic relationship and she got pregnant. She gave birth to her 3rd child, who was also a girl. As time went by, the relationship between Tiane and her boyfriend became very toxic. Nothing was working out between them, so they separated. After their separation, Tiane took him to court so that they can settle the dispute about car ownership and parenting of their last-born daughter. Later on, Detroit City became a very unsafe place to live in because of drugs and violence, which were the order of the day. As a result, Tiane's 25-year-old cousin found himself as a victim of those violence and drug abuse. He was murdered in such environment. Tiane was deeply hurt after her cousin was murdered, so she decided to make a change in her community. She volunteered to work for a local nonprofit organization called Developing Kids. This organization provided free after-school and summer programs for children in the city. Tiane began working as a mentor with the organization, but soon after she became a member of the advisory board. In the year 2010, Tiane was elected as a board president. Tiane again found a job working as a law clerk at patent law firm. While working as a law clerk, she focused on intellectual property law. She decided to go back to the university to further her studies, so she went back to Wayne State to attend law school. At the same time, she continued working as a law clerk. She had a very busy schedule, therefore balancing her work, studies, and raising her daughters full-time was not easy, so she often left her children under the care of her mother, Cheryl Jones. At that time, her mother lived in Detroit's suburb of West Bloomfield, so she always dropped her children off at her mother's place whenever she had classes. While on campus, Tiane became a member of various organizations like the Black Student Law Association and the Intellectual Property Association. As she approached the end of the year 2013, she was in her third year, which also happened to be her final year at the School of Law. Her mother had already began making plans for her graduation. On October 28, 2013, she dropped off her children at her mother's house as usual. She was running late for her classes, so she said goodbye to her children as she hurriedly drove her 2009 Chevy Trailblazer car and headed to the university for her classes. Her car had vanity plates with her name on them. After her classes that night, Tiane was seen driving towards the east side of Detroit City in a company of unknown man. That night, Tiane was shot in the head while in her car. After she was dead, her body and her car were abandoned behind a vacant Packard plant factory covered by trees. Her killer then fled away from the crime scene. That evening, Nina called her mother, Tiane, but the call went unanswered. She tried calling her multiple times, but she couldn't reach her. Nina became so worried because their mother has never failed to answer her calls, no matter how busy she was. Even if she was in her classes, she always still answered her calls. At that time, Nina was already 14 years old, so she was old enough to know when things were not okay. She tried to reach her mother, Tiane, on Facebook, but still she couldn't reach her. Later on, it was 2 a.m., and their mother had not come to pick them up. What was more worrying was the fact that she was not answering her phone, and she was not responding to her Facebook messages. So Nina went into a great panic. She informed her grandmother, Cheryl, that she couldn't get in contact with her mother. Cheryl got up and drove to Tiane's place to see if she was there. She arrived at her house almost at 3 a.m., but there was no sign of her. Cheryl then figured out that the only place that Tiane could be at that time was at the university, so she drove to Wayne State University campus. When she arrived at the campus, she drove around the Wayne State University campus parking lots looking for her daughter, Tiane's car. Unfortunately, after searching all of the parking lots of the campus, she didn't find her daughter's car. She then went to the library to see if her daughter was there. She went from one floor to another looking for her, but she was not there. Cheryl checked all the conference rooms, but Tiane was nowhere to be seen. She was also not answering her calls, so Cheryl began fearing for the worst. After searching the entire campus for Tiane without finding her, she contacted the campus police and reported her daughter, Tiane, as missing. She then asked the police for help, but they dismissed her report. They told her that her daughter was probably out somewhere partying. After the campus police refused to help her, she went to 4 different police departments begging for help. Unfortunately, no police bothered to help her. The following day, news of Tiane's disappearance had spread throughout the campus. Therefore, her law school classmates and professors were worried, and they began looking for her. They tracked down Tiane's movements from the previous night. They discovered that after she had left her mother's house, she went to the campus. She was then last seen at around 8:15 p.m. in the library, where she was taking an online test. From there, nobody ever saw her again. They discovered that he logged out of her computer at 11 p.m. The police immediately took over the case, and they released a statement to the media requesting information about Tiane, who was now a missing Wayne State student. Police at that time said that they didn't believe that a foul play was involved, and even though her family hoped for the best, their fear was that something had happened to Tiane. For the next 2 days, Tiane's family and friends searched all over Detroit for any sign of her or her car. As the investigations continued, the police found surveillance cameras at the library, but unfortunately, they were broken the night that Tiane vanished. Her family and friends used Facebook to ask for help in locating her or her car. Flyers were printed and passed out all over the Wayne State campus. Also, the university placed an alert on their campus Facebook page. On October 30th, 2013 in Detroit, Michigan, two homeless men saw a 2009 purple Chevy Trailblazer car behind a vacant Packard plant factory covered by trees. When they moved closer, they saw a woman inside the car. She was sitting in the front driver's seat, slumped over the dashboard, still strapped into the seatbelt, and her shoes were off. They discovered that the woman was dead. She had been shot in the head. The two homeless men then searched the entire vehicle for valuables. They took the victim's phone and money. They then called the police, and they reported that they have found a body of a dead woman behind a vacant Packard plant factory. The two homeless men then fled away from the scene with the money and the phone which belonged to the victim. Soon the police arrived at the scene where they found the body. They identified the body to be of Tiane Brown. They then started their investigations immediately, and soon they discovered that the victim's phone was missing. They immediately began tracing the victim's cell phone. Later on, they called Cheryl and asked her to come to the police station. So Cheryl, her husband, and their granddaughter, Nina, all went to the police station. Upon their arrival, Nina was told by the police to wait downstairs, and they took Cheryl and her husband upstairs. The police informed them that their daughter, Tiane, has been found murdered. Cheryl screamed in pain when she heard about her daughter's death. Nina, who was downstairs, heard her grandmother screaming, and she immediately knew that her mother was dead. 2 days after Tiane's body had been found, the police were able to locate the two homeless men who reported the incident. They arrested them and charged them with tampering with evidence, larceny, receiving stolen property, and concealing stolen property. The two homeless men denied being involved in Tiane's murder, so after the police's investigations, they could not connect them to the murder, so they didn't charge them with anything connected to the murder at that time. But still, they considered them as persons of interest in the murder of Tiane, so they were held in police custody. The police also decided to investigate those who had been more close to Tiane. They brought in her ex-husband, Toriano, for questioning. During the questioning, Toriano said that he had issues with his ex-wife, Tiane, and they divorced each other. However, before Tiane's death, they had already made up, and they were in good terms with each other. He was very cooperative with the police, and he said that he had nothing to do with her death. The police gave him a lie detector test to confirm if he was telling the truth, but the results came out inconclusive. The police did not believe that he was involved in the murder of his ex-wife, Tiane, and so they let him go. The police also brought in Tiane's ex-boyfriend, who happened to be the father of her last-born daughter, for questioning. However, after interviewing him, they found nothing that could connect him to the murder of Tiane, and so they also let him go. Later on, the police found surveillance footage at a gas station convenience store. The footage showed two different men using Tiane's credit cards the day after she went missing. They considered those men as persons of interest, but unfortunately, they never located them. In the months that followed, the police didn't find any leads in Tiane's murder, and they couldn't even connect the two homeless men that they had in custody to the murder of Tiane. Crime Stoppers had offered a $2,500 reward for information, and in 2014, that reward was increased to $10,000. But even with the increased rewards, no one came to give any credible information that could lead to capture Tiane's killer. As years went by, Tiane's case grew colder and colder. The police never located or identified the men who were seen in the surveillance footage using Tiane's credit cards. In the year 2017, the police came out and said that they have some suspects who may have been involved in Tiane's murder. However, they never released their names to the public, neither were they arrested. As of today, no one has been arrested or charged in connection to Tiane's murder, and the case has still remained unsolved.